Hi, pretty people. So I wanted to talk about the thing about that Marianne Williamson said about the economic opponent, which is basically a Hydra at this point. It is not just one institution. It's not just the political institution. It's not one corporation, even if BlackRock seems to be something to be concerned about. Um, but it is kind of a multiple-headed beast at this point, which is symptomatic of a kind of mindset that has been going on at least since the 1980s. But I would also say that there's been an assault on the mentality, on the kind of mental autonomy of citizens since the 1970s when they were doing subliminal subliminal messaging, even over and above the regular advertisements that used to come on TV. They used to flash things that were too quick for the conscious mind to pick up, but the subconscious would take it in, and and seemingly quite successfully. So I wanted to talk about that because I think that it's not enough. Like, I've been watching a little bit of RBN and I've been seeing what their strategy is. And I understand that it is not enough to invest all your hope in a presidential candidate when, in actual fact, the beast that you're facing is more than one hero or heroine can face on their own. So I think that it's very important to have allies in the progressive struggle. And I think that that a little bit of my criticism of RBN is they're so busy calling out all of the shortcomings of wherever they see shortcomings in the progressive left, that they're not focusing enough on what can be done and also what can be lauded in allies. Like there are things that whether we're talking about Jill Stein or Marianne Williamson or Bernie Sanders, or I understand, like I heard Nick talk about the fact that he thought that Bernie Sanders kind of did the progressive movement dirty by suspending his campaign after receiving a call from Joe Biden and not really getting any kind of solid concession from Joe Biden at that time. And so I think that the reason that RBN seems angry at Bernie Sanders it has to do with that. But I didn't see them. I had seen Savvy before, but I had never seen their network before, like in 2020 or 2019. So I don't actually know where they stood on Bernie Sanders. Anyway, did you all know that that RBN is trying to build a library in Detroit, which I think is an amazing project, and I am going to put that video in the description because I think it's a really important thing. And of course, they're trying to build a ramp now for wheelchair access, so they need um, funds, which everybody seems to need. But it's a very worthy project. And I that was one example of something that I could see that RBN is doing that could be lauded. And yeah, I think that it is so important to, first of all, stay out of the tribal mindset that makes you think, I'm very much in favor of tribalism in terms of masks and ritual dancing and stuff like that, but not in terms of the kind of camps, which I actually think of as more of a high school phenomenon. Although obviously, this is a very old kind of a cellular memory that we have from the times when humans were mostly tribes. And but I think that it's important for us to approach every situation lovingly, which includes when you're encountering critics of Marianne Williamson or critics of something that you really believe in. You obviously don't want to sacrifice your principles, but at the same time, when it's something that doesn't ask for you to sacrifice your core principles. You can actually look at something that someone is doing, which is really laudable. You know, I think that people should donate to Marcel Dixon. Um, if you agree with his platform, I mean, there is concerns about his stance on Planned Parenting, and I think that you know, obviously is something that everyone has to think about and look inside themselves to see if you obviously, if you really believe in one thing, you don't want to sacrifice it just for the other good thing if that thing is not as important to you. And but I think that it is really good that reparations is something that is being talked about in such convicted terms. Um, and I hope it happens because when I look at Canada, I feel that there has not been enough done for the First Nations people, and you know, they just uncovered all these mass graves from the residential schools, and they declared it a genocide, and I don't know if they've done anything about it apart from you know, that we're good at terminology in Canada, and then sometimes I don't know. I think the pipeline is still going through, so that's not great. Anyway, so I think that it's important to, yeah, maintain a loving perspective when dealing with all of your allies and opponents, even. And it was interesting last time because I noticed that I was contacted by, I made a video about this, but I was contacted by a conservative when Marianne Williamson suspended her campaign and offered kind of not condolences exactly because you know obviously nobody had died, but basically just that she had enjoyed our conversations and it was she was sorry that Marion had suspended the campaign, and this was the lady who had gone through all the comment sections to critique Marianne Williamson's policy plans, but never said, Krista Lady never called Marianne Williamson a name. But was vociferously against everything she stood for. But I swear this lady had memorized her every policy and had seen every talk she had given, which is really all I can ask from a citizen. If you do that and you still disagree, then you still disagree. But I think that, excuse me, it was incredible the amount of due diligence that that lady had done about Marianne Williamson. And so, yeah, basically, I think that it is going to take a transformation of our mindset. And this is where I get mad at people who say, well, what can spirituality do? Because spirituality is actually at the root of everything that we do. If someone is a complete knob head, or like a complete Leonard, as I like to call it, someone who is completely a materialist in their thinking, and then even those people are motivated by a spiritual ethic or a spiritual motive. Even if that spiritual motive is just objectivity, which is something that they hold in very high esteem. Now, I kind of question how people can be objective without meditation, honestly, because it's not like you can just throw a glass of ice water in your face and suddenly you're magically objective. Like you actually, there are mental exercises you have to do to step back from a situation, get out of your ego and get out of your emotions in order to see a situation objectively. And I think that that is also important. Like if you look at the Marianne Williamson speech, her announcement speech, it looks, I think, if you just see it like on its own face, and you don't have anyone talking in your ear, then it sounds like a really great speech. And I personally felt very emotionally moved by it, as well as I could see the policies that she was talking about. Now, if you then watch it with the RBN commentary going on at the same time, it takes on a very different hue because they're putting an emotional angle on it, a kind of they're coloring it for you. So then either you're watching it as a supporter feeling defensive about Marianne Williamson, or you're agreeing with him, and then everything she's saying seems to be what he's saying, she's saying. So, so yes, basically this video is about the Hydra, which is the opponent. It is mass incarceration. It is the undue influence of big money on politics, especially defense contractors, but also big pharmaceuticals and the networks. I mean, whatever happened to PBS? Why don't people watch it? Because it's boring? I mean, I don't know, like, and also I want to encourage people to be compassionate toward their fellow citizens who have had their objectivity assaulted since the 1970s. There's no one alive today who has had the kind of objectivity that someone might have had before we had media, before we had television. So yes, this is let's fight the Hydra together and not turn on each other is basically, this is the core message that I'm trying to get across. Okay, I'll be back soon.